Wagwan, much love to you all. Welcome to our podcast, The High Level, where we banter about a broad range of trending topics. This week, we will be discussing more on the geopolitical tensions created by the hated Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, another brother getting shot in the US, and the complete stupidity that has unfolded. And finally, we will be discussing collective IQ of nations. Why do we continue these discussions against the CCP, one may ask? Well, a while back, we had declared war on the CCP through using this platform as the voice of resistance from the free world to expose the stupidity and the cruelty that is the CCP. I'm here with my Latino brother over in California, the child genius that is Professor Sanchez.
And I'm here with my Jamaican brother from South London, the enigmatic Dr. Wagwan.
We have a lot to talk about this week, so let's kick it off. Professor Sanchez, is an India Vietnam military alliance about to clash with China?
It's starting to look that way. Vietnam has been angered recently by satellite images showing that China has recently deployed at least one H-6J missile carrying bomber to Woody Island. This is one of the disputed Paracel Islands in the South China Sea. So it's much closer to Vietnam. It's basically on Vietnam's coast and it's hundreds of miles away from China. The
Mm,
images prompted Vietnam's foreign ministry last week to warn that the bomber's presence on the island, known as Wang Xining in China and Phu Lam in Vietnam, violated Vietnamese sovereignty and jeopardized peace in the region.
this is funny, fam. The Vietnamese government are also communists. Isn't the first time they had a beef, man. Didn't Chairman Mao declare war against Vietnam in the 1979?
That's right, they did. Enmity goes back a long way. They fought a war after uh, I guess, the U.S. Vietnamese War. The Chinese
Hmm.
Communist Party decided to attack Vietnam. The motivation behind the attack is probably outside the scope of this discussion, but suffice
Hmm.
to say, the Vietnamese did not appreciate being attacked by a neighboring country after they had been severely ravaged by the U.S. Vietnamese War. So,
Mm.
continuing, I guess, the images are thought to have been high on the agenda when the Vietnamese ambassador Pham San Chau met Indian Foreign Secretary Harsh Vardhan Shringla last Friday to brief him on escalating tensions in the South China Sea. They are also thought to have featured in discussions during a virtual meeting between the Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and his Vietnamese counterpart Pham Binh Minh on Tuesday. Carlyle Thayer, an emeritus professor of the University of New South Wales at the Australian Defence Force Academy, said that this was not the first time that China had deployed bombers to the Paracels. It dispatched several H-6K long-range bombers in 2018. However, in recent times, Vietnam's openness about the Indian ambassador's meeting was significant. Given that this time Vietnam made its brief to India public, it's likely that Vietnam is engaging in a diplomatic exercise to call out China's actions with the objective of eliciting political support. So
Mm.
by reaching out to India,
Mm.
Vietnam had showcased not only a comprehensive strategic partnership between the two countries, but also showed its continued support of India's freedom of navigation and overflight in the South China Sea.
Mm.
So this is an interesting scenario where India and Vietnam, and this is, by the way, the ambassador talking, India and Vietnam now find themselves at a geostrategic convergence. Both sides oppose China treating the South China Sea as its backyard, and they
Hmm.
have interests in preserving peace and stability in the Chinese contested waters. So these are pretty big words.
Mm. Of course, man.
Yeah, Vietnam's
CCP, they're pissing off everyone. Everyone around them, they're pissing them off.
and what's interesting is that a lot of the nations within Southeast Asia and within Asia are it looks like they're very scared that Uncle Sam is not going to be able to take China alone, and they were actively banding together.
Mm.
They're not waiting for Uncle Sam to come in there. India and Vietnam are already creating their alliance together.
Mm. As they
So
should.
It
as they
seems like
should.
they're being forced together.
Mm.
And going further, the ambassador Hun said that boosting defense cooperation would send a timely message to Beijing.
It might be timely, but out on the streets, it will just be ignored by Beijing. They're gonna hear it, and then they're gonna talk to each other about it, and then they're gonna ignore it because that's just what they do. It doesn't register with them.
I think to an extent you're probably right. The bad news doesn't really filter up, so only good news seems to get up to the top, and that's a really an issue with dictatorships that you can't really get an accurate picture of what's going on if you're the leader of a dictatorship because people are
Mm.
scared to tell you anything.
They're
So
not, man. They're not very smart trying to take on Vietnam. Vietnam, like I said, is another communist country. They are a little bit more relaxed in, the day-to-day life than China is. However, it's still a communist country. You would think that the CCP would want to ally with them because there's not that many communist countries in the world. And now they pissed them off. They're forming an alliance with India. They can easily form an alliance with all the other Southeast Asian countries. And
I,
then China's just going to isolate themselves. Like what?
it seems
Stupid,
that
man.
way. It seems that way. People are making jokes now, saying that the top diplomat that America has is Xi Jinping.
Mhm,
Just listen to that statement.
mhm.
America's top diplomat in the region is
I
Xi
know.
Jinping. He's doing the job for them.
Exactly.
The
The,
big
C- the
alliance
people
builder.
in the CIA must be laughing about this.
There are some conspiracy theories on the internet saying that he was planted by the CIA. Now that's probably not true,
That's
but
pretty funny, though.
if you look at his performance in damaging his own country's economy and
Mm,
isolating his country from the world,
hmm
one starts to wonder.
Yeah, no, man. Now, our brothers and sisters over in the USA fighting the good fight, the Democratic Party platform has dropped the one China language.
That's right. The platform of the Democrat Party in the United States adopted, I think, last week's nominating convention. They dropped any reference to the US policy of recognizing a single China in reference to unofficial American ally Taiwan. Now, when I say unofficial, it's just because the US hasn't recognized Taiwan as a country, whatever that means. The
Hmm
US has more diplomatic missions and a larger diplomatic footprint in Taiwan than it does China, but for some reason, just on paper, they say, it's not recognized as a nation. I
mm,
should say also that the US allows travel between the United States and Taiwan very freely. The Taiwanese
hmm
passport is rated much higher than the Chinese passport, but
hmm
it's just a technicality. But the new platform, go ahead, doctor. You want to ask a question?
Oh no, I was just gonna say that, I think it's because countries in the world, they're bridging up against the CCP. However, when it comes to formalizing stuff around Taiwan being its own independent country, the superpowers they're still afraid to do so officially. And that's why Taiwan isn't doesn't represent itself in the Olympics. It doesn't have its own flag. And a lot of countries around the world they also see this. They know Taiwan's an independent country, but to state it officially or to document it officially, I think is another move that they don't want to piss off China to that extreme extent. And maybe that's why, you know, the Americans haven't declared them as an independent country.
Yeah, it's the Chinese Communist Party has threatened to rain down fire and destruction should Taiwan declare its independence. Whatever that means, that Taiwan is already independent. It is
Mm-hmm.
a separate
Mm,
country. It has no governmental sharing of power with China. But
mm-hmm.
somehow, if I think if Taiwan says the word "I am independent," then the Chinese Communist Party has said that it will engage in attack. We're not
Mm,
really sure if that's the case or not. Certainly,
mm-hmm.
I think any of the Chinese military members, they've been openly saying that we are not going to go to war with with Taiwan. We do not want to invade, and we are not ready. However, the Chinese Communist Party has been building up a huge amount of nationalism in China with propaganda, Han superiority. It's all about the Han race, and
Mhm.
the Taiwanese find themselves in a difficult situation. Even the Chinese government actually finds themselves in a difficult situation. They've raised a, a dragon of this patriotic drumbeat of war. It's very
Mhm.
hard to control that. You can't just what are you going to do? Tell the Chinese people tomorrow, sorry, we can't take Taiwan. We don't have the technology or the military power to do so.
Mhm.
Sometimes the people they just maybe if they get into a frenzy, they want to do some sort of attack. So whether China will actually do something or not, it could end in World War III. But that doesn't mean that China won't do something. Uh, like I've said before, they might be stuck between a rock and a hard place, and this regime is much less rational than the superpowers of the past. For
Mhm.
example, the Soviet Union was a very logical, rational power. It didn't do crazy things.
Mm.
Unfortunately, the CCP is a little bit more like Germany or Imperial Japan or
Mhm.
North Korea in its behavior. It's not behaving rationally or in a professional manner. It's
Mm.
behaving with a racial impulse for one thing.
Mhm.
So it's all about the superiority of this new Han race, which they're talking about, which apparently Koreans don't, Cantonese people don't form a part of, and Taiwanese aren't a part of the Han race because they're mixed with Portuguese and Japanese. These are not my words, by the way. I'm just
Mm.
quoting official publishings out of newspapers in China. So
Mm.
this is a crazy platform actually. But yeah, the new platform issued by the presidential nominee Joseph Biden states that the Democrats are committed to the 1979 Taiwan's Relation Act, which calls upon the U.S. to defend Taiwan from mainland attack. By
Mm.
contrast, in 2016, the platform under the Democrats, under Hillary Clinton, supported the One China policy hammered out by Richard Nixon when the US dropped formal diplomatic recognition of Taiwan and shifted recognition of Beijing. So the 2016 document under Hillary said the Democrats were committed to a One China policy. Imagine that. Imagine how Taiwan would feel when Hillary Clinton said, I'm committed to a One China. I'm guessing the Taiwanese were probably not too happy or pretty scared. But Biden struck that away. He's wiped that away. We do not
Mm.
support a one China policy, and he's actually backed up the fact that he will come to the aid of Taiwan if mainland China attacks. As you can imagine, China's foreign ministry was pretty angry.
Of course they were angry. CCP, Foreign Ministry hearing this as if they're gonna be happy about it. They can't react in any other way.
Yeah, a lot of people said that Joe Biden was going to be weak on China, and he's pretty polite. He's very
Mm.
polite. He doesn't say anything mean or rude or insulting about the CCP. He's never
Mhm.
said a bad word about the CCP, but you can see his policies are very aggressive. Actually, much more aggressive than Trump. Trump said no such thing about. Trump maintains a strategic ambiguity about Taiwan. He doesn't say here or there what he's going to do if mainland China attacks. This is Biden
Mm.
opening the deck before he's even elected, saying if China attacks, we're obligated to defend Taiwan.
Mm. Well, Trump is, you know, his focus is really centralizing everything back in the US. He doesn't want to be that world police no more.
You're probably right, and it seems like Biden is more of a America as a global hegemon, as a global power.
Mm.
He doesn't
Mm.
want to see America shrink back to Fortress America. He
Mhm.
wants to see the United States as that. I think he's a true believer in the United States as a those words, a shining city on the hill, and
Mm.
yeah, the platform is actually extremely polite and extremely aggressive in the same way. If I could explain it to you, it would be like somebody sitting calmly in a room and telling you, if you touch Taiwan, I'm going to completely destroy your nation. Very
Mm.
calmly and politely. Whereas Trump would be screaming and shouting, but he's not really saying anything of substance.
Mm. Well,
Yeah.
this is how diplomacy is played. There is no reason to be shouting, waving your arms around. You either gonna, state it and act upon it, or not. Don't make empty threats. Don't. Trump is like a chihuahua, man. This
Yeah.
little chihuahua comes running up, barks the hell out of you, yappity yap. But at the end of the day, is that little rat is just gonna scurry away.
Yeah, and it looks like we're seeing now what Biden's policy is as his own president. So under Obama, he had obviously had to toe the line of Obama. He was working
Mm-hmm.
for President Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is Biden, and yeah, I can guarantee you the Chinese are pretty annoyed with the way things are going. They do not want to see this kind of change of direction. They thought Trump was bad enough, but now I think they're about to get a taste of Biden, who's going to
Mm.
be, by the sound of things, extremely aggressive. For example,
Let's
the
hope
foreign.
so.
It,
Let's
it
hope.
definitely seems that way.
Yeah, let's hope so. I think nations around the world need to take a harder stance against the CCP. And you can't just let the bully take free reign. You know, at some point in time, you're gonna shut that bully down.
The thing is, where do you draw the line if you just let them? This policy of appeasement has been tried time and time again. So
Mm,
they let Adolf Hitler take large chunks of Europe, and they said, well, if we just let him take a few, maybe he'll be satisfied. But he never
mm,
was satisfied. He
mm-hmm,
kept going until the nations of the world got
mm,
together and said enough. And likewise for Imperial Japan, when Imperial
mm,
Japan rampaged through Asia with their racial superiority, their
mm-hmm,
ideals of racial superiority, that the
mm-hmm,
Japanese race are stronger than they're better than any other Asian people or
mm-hmm.
nation, and these kind of
You,
ideologies they have a habit of unraveling, but they usually cause tremendous damage and human suffering.
because they're mudmen. You can't let mudmen have free reign.
Yeah, yeah. The foreign ministry of China is really, really angry. They said that the One China principle is the political foundation of China US relations and a common consensus of the international community. And we urge relevant sides to abide by the One China principle and the three China US joint communiques and prudently and properly handle Taiwan related issues.
Mm.
So they're,
Look,
they're telling,
Look at their words. Common consensus of the international community. No, you dickhead. It's not common consensus. It's just false consensus across all the other nations because you say, if the other nations say that Taiwan's independent or so forth, then there will be embargoes and then tariffs and all sorts of, tensions arising from it. It is fake news, in Trump's words. It's common consensus of the international community. No, man.
yeah, uh, I think people are starting to wake up to that fact, that it's morally reprehensible to
Mm-hmm.
betray a freedom-loving democratic people where you have human rights. I'm speaking about Taiwan, and betray them and sell them down the river for a dictatorship which wants to swallow them whole, and just for the sake of what? A few bucks? What did we get? What did we get out of selling out Taiwan over the years? What was the benefit? Not much, to be honest.
Mm.
And the poor old Taiwanese, they sat there patiently waiting for people to change their minds. So this is just testament to the fact that they are a very patient and peaceful people. Are we going to let them get bullied and eaten alive
Mm.
by a the neighborhood bully? Is this what we're going to allow?
Mm. That's right. They're out there. They're not Nigels. They have worth, and they're waiting for friends or waiting for nations to realize what is happening and ally with them because they've been isolated. China is a superpower. It's got strong economic influence all around the world. And if it's us or it tells other countries to not recognize Taiwan as being independent, and for decades now, other nations have been following suit. Taiwan has just been sitting there waiting, go, okay, look, okay, you guys believe that. We're going to continue with our industries. We're going to continue with creating, you know, the microchips that we do. And at some point in time, you guys are going to see how bad this bully is. And I think the turning point is here. The catalyst has to be the US. They have to, because US is like that popular kid in school. When that popular kid goes and does something, all the other kids fall in line because they think it's cool. Well,
I
it's good
think
news to see that the US are, starting to recognize that.
it's about damn time, and not a second too late,
Mm,
because there's no telling. Maybe in another, had the U.S. not turned around, who knows? Maybe in another couple of years, 5 years, even 10 years. It's not. We're not sure how long Taiwan could have held out against the Chinese.
mm.
So it's not a damn second too late.
Well, they've done very well with this whole coronavirus pandemic. They were, defending themselves against biohazard attacks, biological weapon attacks from the CCP. And because of that, they had really mature and sophisticated processes in place to screen their people and to protect their people against any kind of viruses. And so they've done awesome.
Yeah, it will complicate things for China, because it means that if China wants to take Taiwan, they'll have to use a gun. They're not going to be
Mm,
able to sit back and send a virus
hmm
and kill half the island with the virus. They're going to have to go in there with a gun, and all of
mm,
those little princes, those little children of one child families, one boy with four grandparents and no brothers and
hmm
sisters, spoilt rotten,
hmm
when those little boys start coming back home to China in body bags and in coffins,
hmm
then maybe the Chinese people will have to really come to grips with the fact that war is not fun. You better have a damn good reason for starting a war, and having, just picking on a peaceful nation and sending your only son to go and die on a Taiwanese beach. If you can live
mm,
with that, then that's fine. But think very carefully about what'll happen, because it's not going to be a cakewalk. You're not going to be able to
mm,
send a virus in there, and the Taiwanese will just die. You're going to have
mm.
to use a gun.
It's not the first time the CCP have sent their boys over into a war and lost millions. It's not the first time, but for some reason, man, the citizens, those mums and dads, they don't seem to fucking remember. It's a strange thing.
It's
So
like
these
a
events
collective
occur, and
amnesia,
the yeah, man, and the
national
government
amnesia.
governments come out and they go, "Oh, look, we don't know what the numbers were of our youths dying over in that war. We don't know, but it wasn't many." And for some reason, the citizens believe it and they forget and they don't rise up. They don't do anything. They continue to cower. It's strange.
Yeah, I, I really am not sure how long it can go on for, because China does have a rich history of the people rising up. You've had peasant revolts, mass uprisings.
And
So
they got shot down, they got chopped up. Yeah, but it needs to keep happening. You think about it, man. The general population outnumber those in power. But then there's so much propaganda going around that the people really believe that the CCP is almighty and, you know, they're doing the best in the world. They really do believe that. They brainwash children in school from a very young age. It's all very sad.
it's getting more sophisticated, actually. In fact, the younger generations of Chinese youth are probably more brainwashed than the older generations.
Mm,
Yeah, I think this is just getting going. There's going to be further strain. The Democrats are already preparing a lot of aggression.
mm,
They've said that their approach to China will be guided by America's national interests and the interests of our allies, including Taiwan, and drawing on the sources of American strength, the openness of our society, the dynamism of our economy, and the power of our alliances with fellow democratic nations to shape and enforce international laws that reflect democratic values.
mm,
Think about how angry those words will make the Chinese.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, they've. If you read the full document, I've highlighted a few choice paragraphs like this. Undermining our strengths will not make us tough on China. It would be a gift to the Chinese Communist Party. We we as Democrats promise a clear, strong, and consistent stance on China, pressing their differences in security, human rights, and economic interests. We will underscore our global commitment to freedom of navigation and resist the Chinese military's intimidation of the South China Sea inhabitants. The platform states that the Democratic administration would support activists in Hong Kong with sanctions, with visas, and with economic and monetary support. It condemned China's internment of more than 1 million ethnic Uyghurs and other minorities in what it termed in the document. It called them concentration camps
Mm.
rather than
Indeed,
what the Chinese
concentration
call them.
camps.
Yeah, the CCP calls them, what are they, education camps or I
Yeah,
don't know.
re-education or some kind of training facility.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure what they're learning. More like a brainwashing camp, possibly.
Mm.
Yeah. So these this is a big change in tone. This is a big change in tone. So a lot of people thought Joe Biden was going to be weak. It seems like he's not going to be weak. He was asked a long time ago, "How do you do diplomacy?" And he responded, quoting a former president from a long time ago, and he responded to them and said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." And that's a very different approach to Trump, which is, speak loudly and, like you said, Chihuahua.
Mm. The CCP says that Taiwan is an exporter of COVID-19. Have you heard about this rascal, man?
I, I, I saw this. I saw this link in Twitter. Yeah, China's official mouthpiece, the Global Times newspaper, they called Taiwan an exporter of COVID-19. That was not a typo, and they blamed Taiwan for the resurgence of the virus across East Asia and Southeast
Mm.
Asia. They said Taiwan infected Japan and they infected the Philippines, and they claimed that Taiwanese news outlets had faked their virus numbers and unfairly criticized China for China's performance with the virus because China was honest with its infection numbers.
Man, they're just stupid over there. I can imagine what's going on. You got some idiot executive thinking, "Oh man, I really gotta, I gotta do something. I don't know what to do. Let's just make up lies." The whole world is saying that we fake numbers, and that the virus came from us. Well, maybe we'll just say Taiwan did it. Yeah, and they destroy. This is all part of their propaganda process, man. The poor citizens in China, they read this stuff and they unfortunately believe these kind of news. That's the sad reality. I mean, this is why the CCP do this, because it's worked in the past. So they continue with this line of propaganda. The rest of the world sees this, and we all know the truth. But over there, this man is continuous brainwashing. It takes a lot of courage, you know, and really strength of mind and awareness of an individual to overcome the constant waves of propaganda being fed into their ears and into their brains. So you can't, I sympathize. I sympathize with these citizens.
You can't make this up, to be honest. It's possible the writers were under duress
Hmm.
or under the influence of mind altering substances. I just want to clarify, just as a fact checking, that Taiwan has been one of the best performing countries against the virus, and they are a democratic. They're a country with a freedom of speech, human
Hmm.
rights. They've been a loyal ally of the United States and all other democracies, and
Hmm.
they did not release this virus on the world. The virus came from China. It came from Wuhan. It did not come from Taiwan. I want to stress that. I'm sure our listeners know that, but just want to stress that this news story, if I could call it that, is absolutely completely insane and fake. Taiwan had nothing to do with the virus. They have been working against the virus this entire time. This is just insane. This is like, you know, you criticize somebody and then instead of saying why they're not responsible for something, they say, "No, you." Like,
Exactly. That's what they're doing, man. That's what they're doing. They go, "No, no, you did it." It's just stupid, man.
it's just like schoolyard
But
bullying. I know
but
you are,
this
but
is
what
what
am I?
exactly. But this is what they do. This is what the CCP does, and they think they're smart. I just For us, it's unbelievable. But like I said, it must work because there's a lot of citizens out there that really believe that the CCP are doing good in the world, and they are the number one political party in the world. It's stupid, man. I mean, Taiwan has done awesome in minimizing the virus, and they've gone through basically no period of lockdown. You do a comparison with some of the more developed nations in the Western world. What comes to mind? You got the USA, who is for their own reasons, the coronavirus is running rampant through the country. UK people aren't really listening to them anymore because the numbers are just fucked. And then you got Australia, who's geographically advantaged to be able to bubble themselves from the rest of the world, but their numbers are in the tens of thousands of infected now, you know. And then you got Taiwan, who is so close to their arch rival, the CCP, China, and their numbers are in the few hundreds. Their deaths, the deaths don't even make 50, man, and no one is really talking about them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, except us.
Except for us, because that is the point of our platform. In the
Absolutely.
same, the media in Australia was fortunate this week to taste firsthand a platter of warm and delightful rasclap propaganda dished up by a high ranking minister of the CCP. Have you heard about this, bro?
Yes, sir. They got a visit from the esteemed Wang Xining. He's the deputy head of mission at the embassy of the People's Republic of China in Australia. So that's communist China.
Hmm.
So he's the number two man, as he was quoted as saying about himself. Obviously, got a little bit of internal confidence. I'm the number two man.
That's what he said, man.
I'm not sure what he was getting at, but okay. So he was at the Australian National Press Club, which was a media event with mainstream journalists. We'll call them Australian journalists.
Mm,
they're I guess they're well known within Australia.
mm,
So this is a very rare visit and at a public event by any member of the CCP.
that's right. See, they don't normally come out and pretend to host impromptu question and answers with journalists. Now, it was supposed to be impromptu and live, but I could see this clown, he had notes prepared, man. He already had the questions in his hand and he had prepared answers. He was flicking through these pages on his podium. I mean, come on, man. You're gonna be up there, you're gonna fake your speech, right? You're gonna fake this Q&A. At least hide your notes a little bit better. So this Q&A, it covered a whole range of topics and tensions in between Australia and China. It covered espionage, territorial rights, COVID outbreak, tariffs, and their concentration camps. And man, this guy, this Wang Xining, he had some laughable things in the defense of the CCP.
What did he say?
Man, he went on to explain that China sees itself not as a party state, but actually as a socialist democracy. And he even
What?
made a comparison. He said a
What?
simple comparison between Australian democracy and the Chinese democracy will be like this. You have a voting democracy. We have a working democracy.
What does
This is
that
what
mean?
this guy said, man.
What does it mean?
He just thinks basically our democracy is working. It's better than yours. You guys vote, but it doesn't work.
And he said that in the National Press Club of Australia.
In front of cameras, in front of a room full of journalists who aren't even practicing social distancing. Idiots. But that was another thing.
Is he trying to piss them off, or is he trying to make
No, man,
do
the
diplomacy?
propaganda is so deep into his brain that it comes out of his mouth when he tries to do impromptu talking.
So
It's
he's not
ingrained in
trying
him.
to insult. He was not
No,
trying to insult them. He was trying. Oh my god.
it's like this is the way CCP members talk, and I'm going to continue talking and behaving like this. Whether he really believes it or not, who fucking knows? But
That's
he's
incredible.
man, he's a disillusioned liar.
That's incredible.
He said that their top concern is about efficiency in alliances and running the country. He noted that democracy involved voting, but he said people did vote for members of the National People's Congress. So therefore, the CCP is a democracy. That's his argument.
Uh,
What a weirdo, man.
I mean, people vote in North Korea and in Singapore, and I believe the governing party always seems to win. Um,
It's
I think
funny. You're
I think
either communist or
Kim
you're
Jong Un
democratic.
Kim Jong Un got 99% of the votes. I'm not sure if he's dead or alive yet. If he was dead, he might even get 100%.
Yeah, it's funny stuff. There was
That
an Australian journalist out there. He stood up and he said, he once worked in China and he actually operated under this guy, under the
wow,
authority of Wang Xining himself. And he went
wow.
on to say that, so he went on to accuse the CCP of blocking information. Okay. He said that every time they tried to interview people, these people that speak out would often disappear, or they will be put under house arrest, or they will be detained on numerous occasions, sometimes violently and physically detained. Now, Wang retorted and said, "No, I don't agree. We think
Okay.
sometimes the Western media fail to give out the information." He said that they picked out a piece of a large jigsaw to portray China as a very autocratic country. If you go into the street and you talk to the people, you'll find, for example, 85% of the people agreed with what the government is doing. This is what Wang was saying. Where does he
Okay.
pull up these stats from? 85% of the people agreeing that the CCP is doing well. He also continued to say that they think China is moving in the right direction and there are 90 million Communist Party members. Each year, there are 2 million more joining the party. If you think they are idiots, then that is an insult. So he used the growth of his so called club, right, this communist club. He used that growth in saying, oh, okay, we're doing the right thing.
I don't
Wang
think
said,
anybody thinks the Chinese communists are idiots. I think they're horrified that they're putting people in concentration camps.
mm,
Nobody said they were stupid. People
what
said they were
I'm saying
horrific.
is stupid. I'm saying is stupid, right? For all their propaganda speech.
Well, you just insulted the man. He just said he'll take it as an insult.
I insult them constantly.
That's why you do what you do. You are the best at what you do.
Wang said he did not think anywhere in the world allowed freedom of speech. And these were his words for justifying this statement. He said, I don't think child pornography or pro terrorist information would be allowed in Australia or anywhere in the world.
Um,
Can you believe this guy, man?
so, so,
This
uh,
is his line of defense about freedom of speech.
so, so putting the Hong Kong students into prison,
Mm,
were they supporters of terrorism or child pornography? And the Uyghurs, the millions of Uyghurs, how many millions of child pornographers are there in the Uyghur population? Um, this is unbelievable. It seems like every time an authoritarian regime wants to clamp down on free speech, they
mhm,
wrap it in a flag of nationalism and patriotism, and they say, "Oh, this is terrorist behavior," or "This is, won't somebody think of the children? This is child.
mm,
We have to protect children
mhm,
from exploitation, and we have to protect the people from terrorism. That's why we have to take away your free speech."
mm,
I'm sorry. That is an incredibly abstruse argument, and it's crass. Free speech is the one and only protection we have against tyranny and authoritarianism.
mhm,
And anybody who attacks free speech, whatever reason they have behind that, is usually a little dictator in the making.
mm. Man, I think the CCP sometimes forget who their audience is. They spend so much time spilling rotten juice into their citizens that when they stand out onto the international platform and they address, the free world, they say the same stupid things and they expect everyone to listen and believe it. So
This is the
during
Go on, sorry.
no, you go on, man.
This is the equivalent of you get in the office and there's this Karen talking in the office, and she's
Mm-hmm.
like, she's complaining and crapping on everybody, and you want to say at the end of the day, Karen, I'm sorry, I'm not married to you. I don't have to listen to your garbage.
That's
I'm
right, man.
I'm not a member of your household. I don't need to listen to this. I don't want to hear this racist abuse.
Mm. During the event, one journalist came up and addressed, these concentration camps. And Wang here, he said, no, 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 these are not concentration camps. These are training centers where people get to be prepared for future jobs. Those are his words.
What jobs are they doing?
The audience laughed, man. They laughed at this.
So they should.
And then
The Australians have a good sense of humor.
the idiot Wang, he thought that the people were laughing with him, not at him. And he laughed too.
What a dope!
I know, man. Man,
Who-
they're jokes.
where did they get this guy from?
But he's the number two guy, right?
Well, that's a mistake. They should have brought the number one guy.
They should have brought the number one guy in.
That's the problem. There's the problem right there. They sent the number two to do a number one job.
Oh, man.
And you know what? You know what? In California, when we say I'm about to do a number two, you know what that means, right?
Oh, that's right, man.
He looks like he did a number two.
Man, over to another communist country, North Korea. The world loves stories coming out of North Korea because it's just, there's such a alien on this planet.
They are very strange. So what the hell is happening there? Do we even know? Is their leader dead, alive? Has he
We
been
don't know.
cloned?
We don't know what's happening, but the word is out, and obviously the word is out from South Korean media outlets that Kim Jong Un is in a coma. Now they said he was in a coma like a couple of months ago because obviously he's quite obese, he's quite fat, right? And he's got a whole range of health issues that is all hidden to the North Korean people. But they're saying that he's in a coma now and that his sister is gonna, take power, which she has already exerted. A few weeks back she exerted her power and she blew up a South Korean kind of building, government building on
On
their
on
on
North
in
Korean
their
soil.
border on
Yeah.
North Korean soil. You know, pretty dumb stuff. But who
Yeah.
knows what's happening there?
But can I ask you, only a couple of weeks ago, we discussed this, and North Korea reported that they were sending trains full of young virgin North Korean girls to Kim Jong Un.
Yeah,
So, so if he's in a coma, who, what the hell is who the girls going being delivered to?
this is more communist propaganda. This is just what they do. They're saying, hey, look, our supreme leader, he's well and good, and that's why we even got train full of virgin girls to go up and party with him. That's their line of defense. You know, instead of saying that, instead of treating it professionally, they have no idea how to deal with it, so they go and take the gutter talk and the crass angle. They go,
That
hey, he's good, he's horny, he's just fucking in orgies, man.
he's just fucking sleeping.
Yeah, man. He's had his dick sucked too many times, man. Let him rest.
They should send that number two guy from Australia. Send him
Yeah,
down
man.
there. I think he needs a bit of a break.
That's right, man.
Oh boy. Oh. Yes, looks like he's finally bit the dust. Hey, one too many cheeseburgers.
Well, who knows, man? Who knows? Any sister's not anywhere any better.
I,
So it's like, is it a real big change?
I
Don't
don't think
know.
she'll last long, to be honest. I think the army will probably poison her or something like that.
Mm, Man, interesting times, oh. Madness times. Just like over in the States now. Man, you got more rioting, more protesting going on. Our poor brother, Jacob Blake, 29 years old, shot in the back. 7 times he was shot. I think 3 bullets landed over in Kenosha in the US state of Wisconsin. He's paralyzed now. You know, well, he received 3 bullets in his back in front of his sons. This is crazy stuff. He wasn't even fighting, man. He got out of a car to stop a domestic dispute that he saw on the street, and cops were called, and he was walking. He decided to ignore the cops. He's like, "Yeah, well, whatever. I'm going back to my car. I'm not gonna be a part of this. I didn't do anything anyway." And as he was getting into his car, the police officer shot him 7 times at point blank range, and even still at 7 times he missed 4 of those bullets. That to me is just stupid. But obviously, the rioting and the craziness going on is all stemmed from that. It's quite sad, man. How has the rioting's been affecting you?
It's causing a lot of disruption, and I think we need to take a message from this. Regardless of whether you think it's wrong or right or it's justified or unjustified, I think we all need to take a step back and say, we need to really fix things because this could conceivably start a civil war if we don't calm things down. And we
Mm,
need more professional police. We need more intelligent police
mm,
and higher paid police. And we probably need a lot less police. Smarter, less, in number and higher paid. We want more professional. We don't want, tons of drones. We want a few highly paid professionals.
mm,
What's wrong with that? Why can't police be doctors in police uniforms? Why can't
mm-hmm,
they be that, we want specialists, surgical specialists. We don't want
mm-hmm,
a kid with a machine gun
mm-hmm.
shooting
That's right.
people shooting people because they disrespected him, turned their back on him. That's not how we want police to behave.
That's right, man. It's quite sad over there that, you know, there's a lot of stupid people in the police force that, okay, and, there's a lot of policemen out there. They've created these, kind of groups on Facebooks, and they've kind of said, hey, look, not all of us are bad. It's just one bad apple.
Yeah, I mean, like, not all of you are bad. I mean, what amount of you guys shoots people? Like, not all of us are bad, just like 5 or 10%.
Yeah.
You just got a 1 in 10 chance that we're bad.
Yeah, and it
Not
just so happens that a lot of the deaths over in the States are done by police officers. What other countries has that kind of stats? No other country in the world has those kind of statistics, man. Only in the US. So those police officers who are defending their brothers, I understand why you're defending your brothers, but wake the fuck up, man. You're defending something stupid. Just compare yourself with the rest of the world. You guys don't need to worry about terrorists. Your police force are the terrorists.
what I want to say is the United States is about to enter, a once in a lifetime competition with probably its greatest challenge to ever have lived. In its entire history, the United States has not faced a nation like China, as
Mm-hmm,
aggressive, as alien in its ideology,
mm-hmm,
totalitarian. We cannot afford to distract ourselves with police having little gunfights on our streets. We all need to be unified, working together. We need to be professional. We need to build our economy. We need to stop shooting each other. We need to be more intelligent. We can't waste
mm,
time distracting ourselves. We can't afford any second to waste. We can't afford any mistakes. Every
mm,
one of these distractions, if I was in a position of leadership, every little one of these distractions that the police are either creating, and if they're not creating it, they're exacerbating it. They're making it
mm-hmm,
worse when they should be calming the situation down.
mm-hmm,
You know, this would be at one of the highest priorities of my list. We need
mm,
people to be calm. We need things to be improving. We do not have time for this nonsense. We do not have time for kids with machine guns.
mm. Well said, man. But unfortunately, there's a lot of stupid people out there. Even the rioters and the protesters themselves. There's a large contingent of them just running around, destroying local businesses, hurting local people that have nothing to do with it.
That's true.
And
That's
they're
also
doing it
true.
all in the name of BLM. But man, I think some of them are just opportunities. They just come in and they just creating mayhem for nothing. There's no time for that kind of stuff, you know. And so I was looking at all this stupidity going on, and it made me think. It made me think about collective IQ. You know, what is the
Who's that?
collective IQ of the USA?
I actually
So
don't know off the top of my head.
yeah, so I started digging around, right? But before we start going into this list of, because there's a world ranking of collective IQ by nations.
Okay.
Before we get into that, why don't you explain to our audience what is this collective IQ?
Well, As I understand it, IQ test is a measure of your intelligence, of a human's intelligence, their ability to solve problems
Hmm.
and to create models, your ability in mathematics, your memory and recall ability.
Mm-hmm.
In a nutshell, it's your capacity for higher order thinking. What separates us from animals, basically, wild animals, which have some rudimentary thinking ability, but not to the extent of us. Most animals can't even recognize themselves in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So IQ is a measure of intelligence, and generally speaking, a higher IQ means a more intelligent, more thoughtful, considerate person, and a lower IQ is a less intelligent. That doesn't mean the person is bad or mean or
Mm-hmm.
as we should probably mention a lot of
That's right.
people are born with mental disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Perhaps they were caused by some sort of genetic predisposition, whether that's Down syndrome or maybe they were malnourished as a child.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, IQ measures your intellectual abilities.
Mm. And so there is this collective IQ of nations, which is looking at the average IQ of those in that country.
Gotcha.
Mm. And there is a range of these average IQ scores across the globe. All of the countries have been divided into ranked categories, right? The lowest IQ on average in the world is 59,
What?
while the highest is
Ah,
108. So 59 is like the South Pacific um, nation down near Australia kind of region.
okay.
Now, we're not saying that, um, these people are dumb and then therefore they should be treated less as a person. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about collective IQ of developed nations because there is too much stupidness happening that it just made me think, okay, are these people actually dumb? Because they're not supposed to be. They're living in a developed country. They say the US, best country in the world, one of the best educations in the world, then why are they behaving like idiots? So, generally speaking, most developed countries have a higher average IQ than the poorer nations, being the African continent, the South Americas, and the South Pacific island regions. But then these people, they're behaving like baboons.
Yeah. Uh, the ones I assume you're talking about the behavior of some crazy people in developed nations. Is that what you're referring to?
Hmm. That's right.
Yeah, the baboons. If you look at baboon society or primate society, they're distinguished by their colorful face markings and their exposed red ass, their buttocks. They're actually very intelligent creatures, though.
Mm,
They act crazy and they do wild things, but they're actually quite intelligent. But they are associated in their baboon societies for their sometimes violent and temperamental behaviors. It seems that uh, there is a cultural aspect to this. So there's probably a cultural influence to this, and part of it is that there may not be so many costs to being a dumbass in a developed nation. For example,
mm,
if you're in a poor nation, you can't afford to be a dumbass when it comes to vaccination and the health of yourself and the health of your family.
mm-hmm,
You have to be healthy so that you can take care of your family and continue to get a wage and take care of your family. You have
mm-hmm,
to be you can't, if a doctor says if you take this vaccination, it'll protect your kids from measles.
mm,
Because measles might be rampant in your country, you want that vaccination to protect your kids. So there's a distinct cost if you do not make the right decision and take the vaccine.
mm-hmm,
In developed nations, whether that is any of the OECD, we have now a burgeoning contingent of people, some of whom are very well educated, not scientifically educated, but maybe they're wealthy, and that's one of the problems with society is that people who are wealthy are often not scientifically educated. This is a story from a different show, but it's a dangerous
mm-hmm,
precedent. But I think there are a lot less costs in a developed society to being a fucking dumbass. And unfortunately, because they're protected by the infrastructure of society,
mm,
of society's guardrails.
mm-hmm. That's a very good point, man. It makes more sense now. Let's talk about the top countries with the highest IQs. Going down the list real quick, you got Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea, Japan, China, Taiwan. Man, all that is like proper East Asia.
Yeah,
And
that's
then it
East
kind of
Asia.
And then it goes into Europe. A lot of Europe. UK is sitting there at ranks number 7 with an average IQ of 100. And then a bit more Europe. And then you got the US, who is ranked 9 at around 98, which you can call it, basically 100 on average. And then you got Eastern Europe, and then it kind of, falls off from there. So, like you said, though, you made a really good point that people in developed countries, they have more room to behave like baboons and to get away with it. I think you've nailed it on the head right there.
There's a lot less, yeah, a lot less punishment. So you can do two things to enable good behavior. You can reward good behavior with a carrot, or you can punish bad behavior with a stick. And I think in some countries of Europe, the punishment for bad behavior is pretty weak, and the rewards for good behavior are also pretty weak. I think in the United States, we have a tremendous amount of rewards for good behavior, and the punishment for bad behavior is more than in some European countries, and certainly more than your own country. But the punishment is maybe a lot less simply by virtue of the fact that we have a modern world, modern medicine, modern technology. That if you are stupid enough to believe that vaccines are evil, that you
Mm,
probably survive, mostly because modern medicine will protect you anyway.
mm, mm. Let's now talk about smart people. Our smart brothers and sisters at Oxford University, coming out with that positive news about their vaccine trials. They're saying that they could be before regulators by end of the year.
That's incredible.
That's
Yeah,
fast, man.
the US is actually considered fast tracking them for use before the November 3rd elections.
Mm,
One option being explored would involve the US Food and Drug Administration agency awarding emergency use authorization in October to the potential vaccine. And the process for emergency use authorization was well established, but it still involves having carefully conducted data and evidence that it actually works. The Financial Times reported that Washington was considering basing emergency approval of the vaccine on just a small UK study of around 10,000 people.
mm. It's unusual, to fast track it like that, but the US are they're kind of desperate with the,
We are
the
pretty
number of
desperate.
cases. Yeah.
We can't control our borders. We have a huge border with Mexico. We just can't control it. It's just too big.
Mm,
At the same time, the country is so massive, and we're just not set up for quarantining people. We're just
mm,
not set up for doing that. We have massive interstate highways, so the virus is just going to keep running rampant throughout the United States. Um,
mm.
so we need a vaccine. The United States doesn't fight bioweapons with quarantines. I think it wants to fight them with vaccines.
Mm. And it just shows the amount of trust it has with the UK Oxford University. They believe and they have faith that these Oxford trials will produce a successful vaccine and that it will be safe for their people to use. Unlike the Russian Sputnik 5 vaccine. And also this week, it turns out CCP have declared that they have a vaccine too. But everywhere in the world, they're kind of looking at China and Russia's vaccines as, very dangerous. So they have faith in Oxford doing this thing. And Oxford, they have their own procedures and practices as well. They've come out and they said that they've enrolled 20,000 people in their trials across Britain, Brazil, South Africa, and one of their pharmaceutical companies, AstraZeneca, is leading a US trial of 30,000 people. So collectively, that's like 50,000 people, not just from one country, but dotted around the world. So the US putting faith in Oxford's vaccine is not uncalled for.
I think the size of the trial is one issue, but what you need to have is enough cases occurring during the time of observation in the trials. That's also something to keep in mind.
Mm, that's right. Good news for Australia because they've struck a deal with Oxford. Their leader, Scormore, said It's free for Australians because they've secured the rights to manufacture millions of doses of the potential vaccine if trials were successful.
That's huge news. That's huge news.
Huge news for the Australians.
We'll do the same thing in the United States. I think once a vaccine comes out, we'll distribute that vaccine not just to the United States, but we'll distribute that vaccine all across the world. We need a
Mm,
strong, healthy, uh, happy world. The United States wants every country to be strong and prosperous. And
mhm,
the only person that benefits, the only nation that benefits from a weak, damaged economy where everything is sold at discount prices and productive assets and corporations are going bankrupt is the
mm,
CCP. So we will
mm,
go to great lengths, I believe, to distribute this vaccine around the world.
mm,
Probably, we're already drawing up plans for an ongoing massive research and development into biodefense. So this vaccine, you know, in a sense, it was terrible and horrible. The loss of life has been horrible, but it's warned the United States defense establishment that we have to worry not just about cyber defense, we have to worry not just about aerial or coastal defense, we have to worry about biodefense. And
mm,
that's going to cost about 1 or 2% of GDP per year spent on scientific research. And that's what you do during a Cold War. We,
mhm,
when there's no enemies, you spend your money on stupid things like MTV and
mhm,
stupid movies like 50 Shades of Grey and whatever other nonsense we have in society. But when we have a powerful peer competitor who wants to destroy our democratic freedoms and invade countries in its neighborhood, then we got to put the money into research and development. And most citizens, they don't like smart people, they don't like nerds, they don't like scientists because they feel they know it all. And scientists don't know everything. They know more than dumb people, and that's what annoys dumb people. But when times are bad, you got to turn to science.
mhm. That's the that's the thing with times of war, right? War is tragic. A lot of deaths happen, but one of the positives that come out of it is the advancements in science and the funding that goes into research and development. Those industries really grow and they have a lasting effect on the future of humanity. So, yo, you righteous people out there, we love hearing from you. So, either comment from whatever platform you are using to listen to us, or send us a recorded message via Anchor. We are also on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the whole lot, all of them. We are everywhere. Or if you want to go old school and send us love letters, you can email us at thl dot the higher level at gmail.com. And remember to subscribe. In the meantime, keep safe, keep doing what you're doing, and join us next time to digest all the week's smugness again. Much love to you all. Later, Brother Sanchez.
Adios, Dr. Wagwan. Adios, my friend.
Una mattina mi son svegliato, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Una mattina mi son svegliato, ho trovato l'invaso. Oh partigiano, portami via. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, 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 partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di